Yeah, and that's the nice thing about like I'm here with Technical Traders. That's my company, and that's a nice thing about technical analysis is we follow price, we follow trends. We don't pick tops. We don't try to bet against the trend because statistically, a trend is more likely to continue than it is to reverse. So
Mm.
why do you keep trying to pick a top? I know nothing makes sense. We're in a recession. Depends who you ask. I mean, it's just total chaos. COVID, the market should be tanking, so we think, but it's not until it does. I mean, you can't fight this trend.
This is the How to Trade Stocks and Options podcast, brought to you by 10MinuteStockTrader.com, where we cover finance, stocks, options, entrepreneurship, education, and money. And here's your host, voted one of the top 100 people in finance, Christopher Ewell. Hey there, traders. Welcome back to today's How to Trade Stocks and Options podcast. Today, we have a special lesson for you, and this is coming straight from my brand new trading course called the AI Stock Trading System. I've literally pulled this lesson straight out of the course, and I'm putting it here on the podcast because I really believe that this is going to provide you massive, massive value, and that's what I'm trying to do here. And hey, listen, if this podcast was useful to you at all, I really highly suggest that you go check out the full trading course at AIStockTradingSystem.com. That's AIStockTradingSystem.com. Hey, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you'll be notified every time we give you more tools, tips, and tricks to help you trade faster and trade smarter every single week. Hey there, traders. Welcome back to today's How to Trade Stocks and Options podcast. Today we have a special guest online, somebody who hasn't been on in a while, and I'm excited to talk to again, Chris Vermeulen. He is the Chief Market Strategist at thetechnicaltraders.com. And Chris, man, I'm excited to have you back on. It's been a while. What's new?
Oh yeah, well thanks for having me on the show, Chris. Lots going on, lots of activity in the markets, the elections, stimulus, COVID. I mean, we're in the front trenches here with landmines about to hit the news media pretty much every day. Something seems to hit. Yeah, exciting trading times. Going to be some big moves, I think, unfolding, but there's some volatility, I think, in the near term.
Yeah, you got that right. And to give the audience some perspective, the election just happened earlier this week. It is Friday of the election week, and we still don't know who the president is going to be. But one thing we do know is the stock market is kind of out of control. I mean, like it's up like 10% since the election a couple days ago. I tell you what, if the first time you ever traded was this week and you bought a boatload of out of the money call options, you would think that this is the easiest market ever.
Yeah, totally.
Dude, what's the deal? Like, what? Now, obviously, none of us really know, but what do you think's going on out there to cause this like strength, this huge market rally just after the market kind of teeter-tottered and faltered down?
Yeah, I think there's a lot going on behind the scenes. If we look at the what people did in September, as we started to kind of get closer to the election, people were starting to get uncertain. We saw the market start to sell off. There's a little bit of fear of what is going to happen for the election, and now that the elections are underway, it's still undecided who's going to win. But it's pretty clear that I mean the Senate is going to be divided. So that to me added a lot of comfort for people. You know what? We don't know who's going to win for sure, but it's divided, which means there's going to be no crazy way out there stimulus plans and tax rate hikes. And there's definitely going to be a governor in there, a gauge, right? Which I think is good. I mean, you don't really want one party to run something full steam ahead because they can go too far in one direction. So
Hmm.
to have a middle ground, it may not be the best for the stock market. I think the stats are anytime a house has been divided, it's averaged a 6.3% return a year versus a house that's kind of heavy on one side is about 9.3. So it's quite
Oh,
a
okay.
dramatic difference in performance. But for the end user, I mean the normal people, not the rich Americans, or investors, they don't benefit as much. But the average Joe, I think, gets a better deal because the deals are made to kind of work for the majority, not just the stock market people. And the stock market really is just a view of the wealthy people's attitude towards or their sentiment, because they're the ones who own stocks, right? The majority of the stock
Hmm.
market's held by a very small group of people. The average Joe doesn't trade, doesn't own stocks, or enough of it that it's life changing for them. So
Yeah, we don't change that. I mean, that's kind of my goal here is like, how can we empower individual investors to kind of just put their funds in and have some confidence, right?
Yeah.
Dude, I know exactly what it's like. I remember, since we talk about buying out of the money calls, I remember my first trades was buying like most of my account and out of the money calls. And dude, I blew up my account within 60 days.
Yeah.
Like there, yeah. Let me tell you, I was wishing for a rally like this, but you know, those kind of things, while they hurt, I think they are our responsibility as media producers to kind of relay that to the individual investors and kind of A, give them hope that they can figure this out, and B, to kind of tell our war stories and
Yeah.
show our scars and help them in that way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the majority of traders, I mean, there's tens of millions of new traders just in America
Mm,
alone this year. And of course, they had the March, they all piled in right after the March lows. And so they had this amazing run. I know a lot of people who took up day trading and they were absolutely killing it. They were blowing my mind. They were totally new to trading and they're making like, two, three, $5,000 a day. And I'm like, oh man, I got to follow you because it's amazing. I mean, it was the perfect market condition for traders. A lot of traders, a lot of those were trading options.
mhm.
And it's funny because it's right after the September peak, the game really changed. And almost everyone I knew trading had said, I'm like giving back money. I'm like paying back everything I just made and I can't make money anymore. And I'm like, yeah, welcome to a normal market.
Mhm.
This isn't something where you can buy anything and it sticks and goes higher. It's a tough market. So it's definitely an interesting time. And when you get into the options, I mean, a lot of people are buying the out of the money. They want that high leverage, higher risk play and they don't understand the curve of theta and time and how much it eats up. They buy these very short lifespan stock or options, and it kills them, right? And so that's one thing people really need to grasp is take education on options because
Yeah, without a
it's
doubt.
double it's a beast if you don't know what you're doing.
Yes, with that, I mean, you're totally right. And, looking at the market, like you're talking about in the September peak, I mean, it kind of just faltered and I described it to a lot of people as it just kind of died, right? I mean, like it had all this momentum and then just kind of fell over and kind of just barfed out. I mean, that's
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a barf pattern somewhere that we could look at. But that's
I
about what
call it a
it was.
waterfall sell-off, or a bleed
Waterfall,
out.
barf, whatever. Depends on what part of the country you're from, I guess.
Right on. Yeah. Yeah.
But dude, it's looking at it, right? I got out right, man, I got right back in when I don't know, it was about 3 weeks before the election. There was this nice little rally. I got in, I had a good point on that, made a little bit of money, and then it kind of crested and turned back around, barfed again. And when it did, I got back out, and I put it on my social media and stuff. I'm out until after the election. Now
Mhm.
the elections come, and there's this huge rally, and I know a lot of people are going to be excited, like, "Oh my God, this is how the stock market's supposed to work again."
Yeah.
But I mean, we don't even have a president like decided at this point. Now, granted, by the time this airs, it's going to be all different. But that concerns me, right? It's a really hot, bubbly market, and what's going to happen to these people who don't really know what's going on, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that makes
it's
me
tough. I
nervous.
mean, the stock market's had this big rally, and when you look back from the September highs, actually from the March lows to the September highs, and the kind of zigzagging chart pattern on the SP 500, the Nasdaq, I mean, it's a big pennant formation. It's kind of going into an apex here. And this week, we saw the stock market rally huge without a new president elected and it's run right into that upper resistance line. And not only that, but the way it got up there was every day the market gapped dramatically higher and then would rally. And then the next day it would gap dramatically higher and rally again. And we hit that resistance level on these price gaps. And it's not good when a market runs up on gaps because on the indexes, almost every gap gets filled. So we got to go and fill those gaps before the stock market's really going to continue to go higher. So there's going to probably be another pullback and a little correction here. And, that's, I think a lot of people aren't expecting that, but you do need to kind of step back and look at this market the way it's moving. And you want to focus on the strongest sectors, because if you pick the wrong sectors here, especially the way things have been moving, you could really be underperforming the market. And for
Mm-hmm.
example, you look at the leading sectors this year, it's been clean energy, solar up like 270%. And then you look at the laggards, which is uranium stocks and crude oil stuff, and they're all down dramatically. just terrible performers. So it's interesting that the two best and the worst are clean and dirty energy, but it shows you the difference. I bet you it's over 300%. It's way over 300% difference between the worst sector and the best sector from the March lows. And that's mind-boggling, right? So the key is to find the best asset now, which I call ban, and that's the strategy I use. You look for the leaders, the early leaders, and they should be the ones that start to run once the market breaks to a new trend, which hopefully will be to the upside in the next week or so.
Now, historically, a pennant pattern is bullish, right?
Yeah, it's usually the halfway point
Okay.
of a pattern. And the size of the pennant that's forming right now on the SP 500 and the NASDAQ from the March lows is actually pointing to around a 34% rally in the SP 500, which is huge. And that'll blow
Hmm.
people's mind. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's how the market works. It'll do what you least expect. And that's what the charts are pointing to. So if it breaks to the upside, I think the market's going to have a huge run. There's going to be a few sectors that I think are going to just completely be amazing into the year end, especially with uncertainty, with stimulus. So it's exciting.
Yeah, exciting is a great word as long as you're winning.
Yeah.
One thing you need to keep in mind, people, if the trend is up, I mean, if it's moving up, don't just think automatically, oh, I need to short this. Trust me, I've learned the hard way. Don't fight the trend. Even if you don't believe that it's going to continue to go on forever, that doesn't mean you need to short it.
Mm, yeah, and that's the nice thing about like I'm here with technical traders. That's my company, and that's a nice thing about technical analysis is we follow price, we follow trends. We don't pick tops. We don't try to bet against the trend because statistically, a trend is more likely to continue than it is to reverse. So
Mm.
why do you keep trying to pick a top? I know nothing makes sense. We're in a recession. Depends who you ask. I mean, it's just total chaos. COVID, the market should be tanking, so we think, but it's not. Until it does, I mean, you can't fight this trend.
Yeah, no doubt. Now let's talk about metals, right? The last time you and I spoke, you were very heavy long metals, and I've played metals a little bit since you and I talked, and I tell you what, the volatility there surprised me. I mean, I was silver ate my lunch, let me tell you. I was long silver one day, and then it dropped 4%. And then, it started to look like it was going to reverse, and so I went short silver, and then it started to reverse again on me. And I'm like, what's going on here? And then I was out of silver, and then a couple days later, it dropped like 8%, and then the following day, another 4%. And I'm like, this is unusual. What is going on here?
Yeah, silver's tough. It's kind of like natural gas. It can be a widowmaker. It moves fast. In one day, you can make a killing. In one day, you can lose a fortune. You got to play with position sizing. You've got to understand the volatility because it can move 4 or 5% pretty easily, believe it or not. And when it does, it happens very quick. You don't have time to like get out of it. It's just like a big intraday pop and rally, and it's a lot of times the move happens in pre-market or overnight, so you can't even trade options or ETFs to get out of it when it makes the majority of these moves. So you got to be very cautious. The key with metals is to kind of look at the bigger picture, the weekly chart, zoom out on the daily, figure out where the key levels are. I try not to play the oscillations between highs and lows. Silver's been kind of channeling down
Yeah.
the last few months. And because it's in a big secular bull market, I'm not looking to short it at all. I'm letting it kind of weave itself out, kind of fade out. And when it starts to reverse to the upside, that's when I want to get in for the next leg higher. So that's what it looks like it's actually done this past week. We've seen gold, silver miners, more or less the silver miners have had the best run. This
Mm.
SILJ broke out of a beautiful bull flag pattern. It's a halfway point. It's actually showing 60 to 70% upside if they actually take the lead. And I think they could be one of the strongest sectors going into the holiday season. So it's pretty exciting. There's a few other sectors that are starting to pop up, but I mean we're still so close during this election that we don't know which way things are going to shake out, and it's going to take probably another week to really get a gauge on which sectors are the major leaders and which ones to stay away from.
And this is absolutely a classic case of holding your money and just waiting for things to play out is a much more conservative strategy than most people want to take, but probably the best course of action. Because I mean, that's literally what I've not even opened my trading platform in 2 weeks. Like when I got out, I was like, I'm not gonna get in till after the election. And now all this rigmarole after the election, and who knows how long this is going to play out, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's going to be a catalyst event coming because like we finally get a president or how long this is going to play out. But I tell you what, man, I love a good conspiracy. So I saw a conspiracy the other day, right? So now obviously context here, still we don't have a president yet, but the election's happened. That Trump sabotaged the Democrats by placing all of these like what do you want like blockchain tracking numbers on the ballots, and that way that they can track where all the ballots went and how they were tampered with and everything else. And I'm like, ooh, this is good. This is a good conspiracy. I like this one. So we'll
Yeah,
see how
there's a
that
lot
plays
of
out.
conspiracies. I hear from a lot of people. I mean, there's some I don't like to go down the conspiracy theory just because it's a negative thought. I don't even like to watch negative shows or movies.
Mhm.
I just I'd rather be happy and watch good stuff, right? So I hear about these conspiracies and I just hate to think that all these bad things are happening and there's all these evil people and
Yeah.
plans. I mean, but there's a lot of really interesting ones where I'm like, oh boy, it kind of makes sense. I sure hope the heck that's not happening, but yeah.
Yeah, no joke. Yeah, it's this market right now is something else. And that's why I'm glad to be able to talk to somebody with you and your expertise from the technicaltraders.com to kind of give our audience some understanding that hey, you know what? There's bigger pictures at play here. There's certainly opportunities in different sectors that you need to be aware of, just like you were talking about there with your band strategy. And I think it's really key to just be open, right? Don't be
Mhm.
set. Don't say, and certainly like you talked about earlier, don't call tops and bottoms, especially right now with this volatility in like pretty much every
Yeah.
asset class. We don't need
Yeah.
to be doing all that. Well, hey man, I see the market just opened because your screens are flashing like crazy back there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there
Well,
should be some
hey,
activity today. Metals are up big again. It's they're on fire. The dollar's falling. It's pretty exciting times for sure for metals traders.
now, do we want the dollar falling? Because like, wasn't that Trump's whole deal? Is he wants a strong dollar, or am I crazy?
I don't know what Trump wants because he says one thing one day on a tweet and then takes it back the next day. So I
Wait,
don't
wait, wait.
really
Isn't
know,
that
but
normal?
it would be nice not to have these random tweets that move the markets dramatically and then the whole comment is retracted the next day. I mean, we don't really need those extra landmines in the market. It's tough enough, but we'll we'll see what happens. He definitely keeps everybody on their toes.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, hey man, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to hang out with us and
Yeah,
share your
anytime.
wisdom. And
Yeah.
definitely make sure you head on over to the technicaltraders.com and to learn more from Chris and his team there. They're fantastic. Chris, thank you so much.
Hey, thanks. Take care.
Okay, so what'd you think? That was pretty incredible, right? Now, if you like that, that's only a taste, only a sample of what you're going to find in the full AI stock trading system. And I really highly encourage you to go and check this out. Obviously, you are interested in learning on how to trade, and that's why you're listening to this podcast. Now, I'm going to take and download my entire trading system that I use day in and day out onto you. And the only way I'm going to be able to do that is over at the AIStockTradingSystem.com. You're going to get phase 1, 2, and 3, several bonuses, and on top of that, I'm going to walk you through over a dozen trades that I put on inside of my account, holding your hand and showing you exactly how I got in, how I got out, how I use the artificial intelligence data, and how this could work inside of your own trading portfolio on a daily basis. So make sure you head on over to AIStockTradingSystem.com. That's AIStockTradingSystem.com to learn more and to get started and to download my decade plus worth of trading experience into your hands so you can start using the AI stock trading system today, the 5-step system to take the guesswork out of trading. Hey, if you like this video, let me know by leaving me a like below, and then subscribe and share it with somebody you think could use it as well. Be sure to comment below with your biggest takeaway from this episode and any suggestions you have for future episodes. And finally, make sure you watch these other videos to help you trade faster and trade smarter, and I'll see you on the next episode.